Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we talked about the Declaration of Independence, at least the first part of it. The Declaration of Independence, of course, is more than 200 years old now, and it was written in English, but in proper English, English that was spoken at the time. It's amazing how highly educated our ancestors were compared to us. It's astonishing how just even 100 years ago, how intelligent and how highly educated we were just 100 years ago. 100 years ago, farmers out in the middle of nowhere had the education of a PhD that we would see today. Farmers 100 years ago knew more about the world and history, science, technology, than you and I do. 100 years ago, in the middle of nowhere, PhDs were farming and feeding us. We talked about how our founding fathers and mothers were practicing masons. They were magicians. It doesn't matter whether you believe in magic or religion or God or Satan. It doesn't matter. At the time, our founding fathers and mothers did. And when I read the Declaration of Independence, they believed in white magic. They believed in good. And like all fathers and mothers, real fathers and mothers, they wanted only the very, very, very best for their children. They gave us a future and a chance. And being highly intelligent, they tried to put all that in writing. The written word has tremendous power. The spoken word has power, yes, but the written word has infinite power. Because even though you and I can say a word and we hear it between each other, that same word written and printed in books and on the internet, hundreds of millions, billions of people can say that one word. And with one thought spoken at one time by 1 billion of us, we can change the universe. Truth is, one person having one thought can change the universe, but that's asking quite a lot. It's one of the reasons our masters are so desperate that we be illiterate, stupid, uneducated. And under satanic law, they have to tell us they're doing this to us. So if you go to university or any kind of educational institution in the United States, you'll be taken on a tour of the campus. And part of that tour is they'll show you where the library is. And they'll say, if you want to look up anything about the world, it's in there. How many of you actually went to the library? Virtually none would be my guess. Because over the years, and I've been in international IT and corporate management and public relations and communications for 25 years now. And over those 25 years, I've had any number of highly educated, I'm told, people working for me. People went to college, university, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Not one of them could read or write their own name. I still can't figure out how they managed to get through 4, 5, 6 years of college, of university, not being able to read and write their own name. But because our founding fathers and mothers put their knowledge, their wisdom in writing for us, for their children, it became critical for our masters to make sure that we could not read anything that our parents left us. And the gifts that our parents left us 200 years ago, we've thrown away. We failed, and we failed completely. So tonight I thought we would continue our chat, our review, our deconstruction of the Declaration of Independence. To me, it's an amazing document. I think the deconstruction part of the discussion is the best way to get through this. so you can understand it in modern terms, and so I don't break down in tears, because it's truly heartbreaking. The gifts our parents left us and we've just thrown away. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, the original 13 colonies created by Britain, still 13 independent nations united together on the continent of America. We must always remember that every state of the Union is its own sovereign nation. And the only role Washington, D.C. was ever supposed to have was to regulate commerce between these various nations, between California and Washington State, between New York State and Maine, between Texas and Louisiana. The only role of the federal government is to regulate commerce between these individual nations. The federal government never had the power to go to war. Ever. The Congress of the United States, the Senate, and the House of Representatives were all people who represented their various nations. The nation of California, the nation of Oregon, the nation of Hawaii. Only that group of people had the power to take the nation of the United States of America to war. We need to reinstate the Constitution. The Declaration of Independence, Part 2, continues. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Okay, let's break that down. So we start with the history of the present King of Great Britain. That would be George III. In our present time, old George Bush would be George IV. Little George Bush, the idiot, would be George V. This is how we count our British rulers. Now, the original Declaration of Independence goes on to say that the King of Great Britain, George III, has a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, which basically means he was a bad king. He hated and loathed and despised his people, exactly as our masters hate us today. He goes on to say that all having in direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over these states, which means he wanted to be a dictator of the 13 original colonies, the 13 original independent nations on the continent of America, us. Today, our masters want the same thing, absolute tyranny. They want to be the dictators. We are assets, resources, human resources of the corporation today called the United States of America, Inc. The United States of America, Inc. is a privately owned offshore corporation. The constitutional republic of the United States of America is gone. No one took it away from us. We gave it away. Power always, please understand this. Power always comes from us, the people. No one takes power from us. We gave it away. Because we're stupid, because we're lazy, because we're fat, because we're not educated, because we eat food that poisons our body, and our bodies are poisoned, therefore our minds are poisoned. We're drugged out of our minds, quite literally, just from the food we get from the restaurants. They put fluoride in our water. You know what fluoride was 100 years ago? It only had one purpose: rat poison. The Nazis during World War II discovered when they put fluoride in the water at the prison camps, it made the prisoners quiescent. It made them dull and easy to handle. Fluoride in your toothpaste poisons your bones. It doesn't make them hard. It makes them brittle. Fluoride is a poison, and it makes us stupid. Our masters today have the same goal that King George III had 200 years ago. He wanted to be a dictator. Little King George V, the idiot, actually would say in public he didn't think a dictatorship in the United States was a bad thing as long as he was the dictator. The idiot thought that was funny. I fled the country. I didn't think it was that funny. The Declaration of Independence goes on. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Here, our founding fathers, as intelligent people will do, they simply will not make a statement and say, that's it. They actually will provide you with evidence in writing. I can't tell you the number of times I've said to people in a corporate situation when they were being poorly treated, I said, it's really simple. You open up Excel, you create a calendar for yourself, and every 15 minutes, all day long at work, you put a little note in your Excel file. What did I do? Well, at 11:15, I got a phone call from Bob. Bob asked me about this. This was my response to Bob. It came in an email. It came in as a phone call, or he stopped by my desk and we chatted. That's it. It seems like a lot of work to do, but I tell you, after a couple of months of that, and your abusive manager tries to rake you over the coals for stuff you had nothing to do with, you pull out that Excel spreadsheet where every 15 minutes, every day at work, you show, this is what I did, this is who I talked to, this is what happened, this is how it happened. It stuns evil dead in its tracks. Intelligent people provide you with facts in a sequential order over time, so you don't have to take their word for anything. This is again why our masters hate and despise and loathe and fear the written word, and why they made damn sure you and I couldn't read or write our own names. So our founding fathers 200 years ago did the same thing. They didn't say, you know, King George III is a bad guy, we want to be gone from him. They actually listed what he did. And whenever you provide a list of events in sequential order, historical order, without emotion, evil runs for its life. I've seen it. I've done it myself quite a few times. Now, the Declaration of Independence goes on to say, he has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He, of course, is little King George III, 200 years ago. He refused to allow laws to be passed that were good for the people. We see this today. Our masters have, following Satanic law, which is British Admiralty law, which is what commerce law, commercial law is today in the United States, as opposed to constitutional law. Constitutional law is law of the people. Commercial law is law of the corporations. The United States of America, Inc. is a business. It says that old King George III, little King George III, would not pass any laws that actually helped people. Today, we have FEMA stating that in the event of an emergency, they will not help us. It goes on, there's another law that says, well, if you're caught hoarding food before an emergency happens, you'll go to prison. So if FEMA won't help you and you can't help yourself, that means that our masters want us to die. I would say that goes against the necessary public good. Now, the original Declaration of Independence goes on. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. This means that King George III, 200 years ago, had governors appointed by us to run the 13 states of the United States of America. He required that any laws that are passed be approved by him first, which means they had to make the trip to England by boat, get approved, and get shipped back. That took some time. But then he couldn't be bothered to do anything about it. He held the United States of America 200 years ago hostage by refusing to approve laws that were necessary. Today, this is just an endless problem. We actually have so many laws in the United States today that any real knowledge of the laws, you can do anything you want and there's a law to defend it. So to be illegal, to be a criminal in the United States is really hard to do because there are so many criminal laws on the books. It just depends on how you read them. Again, this is why our masters do not want us to be able to read and write our own names. Because if we were to walk into the law library and start reading, and that would be a scary thing, we would begin to discover that our masters are truly insane. And we don't need them. For fun, might I suggest you just pick up a law dictionary, a dictionary on legal terms. And if you read a few pages of that every day, you will see the world in a totally different light. Words have meanings, obviously. Words have power. And words are the basis of power our masters have over us. Unless you understand the words that are being spoken, you have no idea what's really being done to you. This is a really good time for me to suggest you go to www.jordanmaxwell.com. This gentleman has been doing this decades longer than I have and has infinite knowledge about the power of words and how words are used against us, you and me, in the United States on a daily basis. And how ignorance of those words causes you to lose a country. You need to understand the words and their meanings and how they are used against us every single day of our lives. The Declaration of Independence goes on. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. This very simply means that unless we give up our rights to be represented by our governors in each state, by our senators, by our congressmen, we're going to starve to death. George III, 200 years ago, was holding us hostage. He was going to let us starve to death unless we gave up, in writing, all of our rights. What few rights we had at the time, he wanted those taken away from us too. Just like today. Our masters want us to have no rights at all. And they're perfectly willing to let us starve in the streets to death until we give in. And from what I've seen, I doubt they will stop there. We need to grow up, you and I. We've been here on this planet for 2.5 billion years. We need to grow up. We outnumber our masters millions to one. We need to grow up. I think that's all we can do today of this part of the Declaration of Independence. But we need to get through this, and this will take some time. But short of you actually reading it yourself, which I know you won't do, I feel an obligation to try. Even though I seem to be cut off at every attempt. I've lately started putting these video episodes up on the Russian version of YouTube. And they very properly do not allow you to promote for money, for investment. And so quite a few episodes I put up have been deleted from the Russian YouTube because I was soliciting money to try to keep this program going. And if it was not for my beautiful guardian angel in the great state of Wisconsin, I'd be dead now. I would have starved to death in the streets. But thanks to her, I have a place to live and food to eat. So that keeps me going, but it doesn't keep the program growing like it should. Of the 50,000 of you who listen on a regular basis, she's the only one who stood up and made a difference. I keep hoping somebody will. Someone else will. This is all up to you. A lot of the laws we have today come from a very ancient, very extinct civilization in Ireland. And there was a blessing, a hope, a dream for friends or for beloved strangers. May you live as long as you wish. May you love as long as you live. For the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race, their black magic, captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.